Hello everyone, it is I, the Golden Scouta, bringing you another Golden podcast. Today, we are at episode 3, and for today we are going to be talking about Hunter x Hunter, the Hunter's Exam arc. And just to be clear, that is going to be episodes 1 through 21. And who do I have to discuss this with me today? Well, this is going to be a regular series, so how about everyone? How about you all say hello to Dragon Ball Dad, Mark, and Mark? How about you say hello to everyone?
Hello everybody, great to be here discussing probably my favourite anime, the 2011 Hunter x Hunter series, which is just amazing. You really should check it out. If you've got Crunchyroll, really watch it after you've watched this, and maybe watch along with us. Watch this first arc, watch our thoughts, and then move on to the next one for our next video. It would work out perfectly for you guys.
Yes, and as you guys heard, there are going to be spoilers, so if you don't like spoilers, this would be the time to go and turn off the video. Go watch episodes 1 through 21 of Hunter x Hunter, but without further ado, let's get into this podcast. So, I think we should just start with how we got introduced to Hunter x Hunter and why we find it to be appealing in the first place. So, I'll start off with you, Mark, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Well, I was just looking for a new anime to watch. Obviously, you go around talking to your friends who know about anime, and you pointed me in the direction of this. When we saw it was wrote by the same guy who wrote Yu Yu Hakusho, that piqued my interest instantly. And just looking at the first episode, how beautiful it is. I mean, the animation throughout this anime is just top notch. I mean, everything looks beautiful in it, and it's just introduced in such kind of a heartwarming way. I mean, I was straight away sucked into Gon's story. How about you, Kevin? How did you come to find Hunter x Hunter?
So I was looking for different animes to watch whenever I was reviewing Dragon Ball Super, and so one of my friends, and I'll give him a shout out, Ultimate Doggy, he showed me this anime, and yeah, I instantly fell in love with it. I mean, it's a very charming, happy anime at first. I hear it gets darker later. Still haven't gotten to that arc yet, but yeah, by the time we get to that point, we'll discuss that. So yeah, the very first time I watched it, I was just like, wow, like, this is a really charming show, and it's really happy, it's really puts you in a really good mood, and Gon is a really interesting character, even though he is probably the least interesting of the 4 core cast characters. But basically my first impression of Gon was just, this guy is basically everything that Ash Ketchum wishes he could be. Because even though, like, Pokemon and Hunter x Hunter are 2 very different series, those 2 characters are kind of similar in many ways. Like, both of them want to be the very best like no one ever was, I guess. And, I mean, Ash doesn't necessarily want to meet his dad or anything like that, and Gon does. So I think that, and also Gon succeeds at things, whereas Ash kind of just fails a lot of the time. So yeah, that's exactly why I think that Gon is basically a better version of Ash Ketchum in a way. What were your first impressions of Gon?
Oh, Gon is a character I really, really love. I mean, on the face of things, he's your typical happy, naive-ish, kind of Goku-esque character, but when you dig deeper, he's got a lot more going on for that. He is a very, very determined character. He sets his sights on something, he's going to go out and get it. Just like with becoming a hunter, his stepmother did not want him to do that, but there was no stopping him. He was out to do it. And the way he's kind of open and forms friendships, and deep friendships pretty damn quickly, is something I love about the character. I just think he's a real intriguing kind of guy, someone you couldn't help but like, I think, if you met in real life.
Yeah, and he's very relatable. I mean, if your dad left, I'm pretty sure that anyone would be like, hey, like, he left for this reason, like, for for Jean's reason, it's to be a hunter, and so Gon wants to see what made being a hunter so important to Jean. So that, to me, just adds another layer to his character.
To get a little bit personal here, my real father actually left my family. And there's a
I'm
scene
sorry about that, man.
Don't worry. There's a scene in Hunter x Hunter where Gon is asked if he wants to find his mother, as well as his dad, and he says, "No, I've already got a mum." And that scene there really hit home with me because I felt the same way about my stepfather. I didn't want to find my dad, so I had that kind of figure. Gon does it in the reverse with his mum, but that really kind of bonded me with the character in kind of a deep personal way.
And yeah, I could only imagine, but geez, that was pretty heavy, man. But
well, you know, just carry on with the fun stuff now.
Alright. So yeah, I mean, we get through the first episode, Gon catches a gigantic fish, which basically means that he can take the hunter's exam. So we get over to the ship, where we actually meet Leorio and Kurapika. And it's an interesting phase of it. I mean, how epic can you get of the captain, like, taking the ship and just riding over this giant wave, and then you find out about Gon, and it's just like, whoa, he can, like, smell out these storms or whatever. It's pretty interesting, and it kind of makes it to where it's just like, huh, Gon is a very competent character, and I can tell that this is going to be something that we see kind of more explored on and kind of utilized later on. So, and it definitely is utilized later on in this hunter exam.
Yeah, but here we kind of get the first hints of how great Ging was, because the captain recognizes that Gon is Ging's son and sees the talent in him, and he kind of pinpoints Gon, Leorai, and Kurapika, the other two main characters that are introduced here, as the talented ones on the ship, as they're the only ones who aren't affected by this kind of massive storm. Everybody else on the ship fails apart from the three core cast members.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. So, I mean, one of the things about Kurapika is that he comes off as very mysterious right away, because he wasn't even willing to answer the question of why he is taking the hunter's exam in the first place. And so whenever I saw Kurapika, I was just like, huh, this is definitely the archetype Kurama character. Because I saw Yu Yu Hakusho first, and so these kind of archetype characters really stand out to me. And it's the same thing with Leorio. I was just like, huh, this is the Kuwabara of this show. And those are pretty much my first impressions, but I'll get on to a little bit more detail of what I thought about them later. I mean, what were your first impressions of those two?
I can exactly see why you thought that. And I get with these two, it's not like Gon. Like Gon, you instantly know who the character is. These two, you need to kind of, they grow as the series progresses, and you get to learn more of their backstories and more information about them. So first off, Leorai comes across very differently to Gon and Kurapika, because Gon and Kurapika come out as noble, whereas Leorai says that he's doing it for the money, which at first kind of seems like a selfish reason, but later on you find out there's a real heartwarming story behind it. And Kurapika and Leorai actually nearly come to blows, and that's after Kurapika reveals his reason for taking the hunter exam. First he refuses to tell him, but then we find out that he wants to be a bounty hunter because his full family were murdered by the Phantom Troop, who are a real powerful, evil, villainous organization that become real prevalent in the story later on in the series. But then you find out Kurapika's got something deep going on. Leorai, you don't find that out for a while, but these two clash anyway, because Kurapika can't see why he's just after money, and Leorai wants respect from Kurapika, which he isn't showing. And when they come to blows, the storm hits, and one of the ship members nearly falls out, and that's where Gon dives in and saves him, and the two help out. And this is where they kind of first start to bond over saving this guy and apologise to each other, and the threesome is kind of born, because here is where they decide to carry on together.
Yes, and I love that so much. It's a really great way of bringing these characters together, because it's a kind of a shonen trope where people who don't really like each other, once they work together as a team, at least doing something, they kind of warm up to one another. But yeah, I mean, the next part of this is the whole trick question of, like, the old lady asking, like, if someone were to say, like, you can only save one person, your daughter or your son, which do you save? And I just thought the answer to that was incredibly clever. And whenever I first saw this, I was just like, huh, Hunter x Hunter is going to be a really well-written series and definitely worth the hype. So, I mean, what did you think about that whole phase?
Yeah, this was a real good part of the story, because this question again revealed more about the characters' personalities. We see Kurapika, the guy who's thinking about everything. He figures it out first, actually. When he watches someone take the test before him, he figures out that there's no right answer, but keeps quiet. Gon just is bemused. He's sat thinking it out until even after the right answer is given, which there is no answer, by the way. We didn't tell you that. And Leroy...
and that scene is so great, too. It's just like, oh, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And Leroy is just kind of a passionate kind of guy. He gets infuriated by the question which has the impossible answer and actually goes to attack the lady. Kurapika stops him in order for them to pass because he's realised that there is no answer. Gon, after the kind of being passed, is when he says, but what would you do if this happened in real life when we are hunters? And that was the point of the question, because they may come into an impossible situation like that.
Yes, and I actually like that a lot because it adds more layers to that test. Because, yeah, like, there is that answer that they were looking for, which was no answer, but at the same time, they might actually come into a situation where you can only save one or the other. So, to me, just kind of tackling that moral dilemma was such a great thing.
Yeah, I would have been stumped there. I'd only passed by luck because I couldn't. It's the only part I would pass. But yeah, I would, because I wouldn't have an answer for that one.
Yeah, me either. I mean, the thing is, you couldn't even answer that. It's just. I mean, especially if you are a parent and you know that. But, okay, so next let's get on to the shape-shifting creatures. So, this was an interesting one because Gon could tell the difference between them, and then Leorio passed because of his first aid thing, and then Kurapika, I actually honestly forget how he passed. Why didn't you elaborate that?
So what happens here is they're told to go to a cabin to get directed to the next part of the test. And what they stumble across is a scene where there's a monster and a seemingly couple down on the floor. So how they react is they instruct Leroy to help the injured guy while Gon and Kurapika chase after the beast. Kurapika is left behind because Gon is... well, he's a machine and displays his strength here. So Gon has a little confrontation with the beast, and Kurapika catches the lady as she falls. So this is where he sees the tattoo, and he first becomes suspicious that she is not who she says she is, because he's a very knowledgeable character. This tattoo that she's drawn on for the sakes of the test tells us that she is single, whereas they were told they were a couple in the hut. And then we see Gon figure out that there's two of these creatures, one posing as a family member and one pretending to be the kidnapper, if that makes sense. So Gon figures out the monsters. He passes because of his physical strength as well as his ability to tell them apart, which is incredible because nobody else can, even after he's explained it. Leroy passes because of his kind, considerate nature, which is kind of a clue. And the first time he mentions that he hopes to become a doctor, that's the reason he wants money. He's a real kind-hearted character, but on the surface it's hard to tell that. And Kurapika passes because of his knowledge. So it's a first insight to kind of what's special about each of these guys. That Leroy's got the big heart, that Kurapika is this kind of encyclopedia. He's the research guy, the knowledgeable guy, and Gon is just all heart and all kind of ability. He's kind of probably the only one of these guys at this point that's beyond human level. The way he performs in kind of climbing stuff and running and his physical stuff is beyond the average person, whereas Kurapika and Leroy probably aren't at that stage just yet.
Oh yeah, I mean, just by the first episode you could tell that Gon has this crazy acrobatic abilities, just because like he could swing across this tree and catch a fish, and then like he jumps from the boat up to the sail in like 2 seconds flat. And then, yeah, Leorio, this is where I would say that he really becomes a great character. And even at this point, I would say that he surpasses Kuwabara in terms of likableness. And then Kurapika, still very much of a Kurama-esque character to me, but So let's go on to the running phase, and this is where we're introduced to Tonpa and Killua. And yeah, my first impressions of Killua was just, I never really thought he was a dark character until later. Like, I'd probably say that whenever he pulled out that one prisoner's heart was probably whenever I was just like, okay, this is the Hiei of this anime. So, and then Tonpa, I have to admit, at the very start, I was just like, oh, you're such a snake. You're such a weasel. I don't like you. And then the second time I watched this show, I was just like, okay, I get the charm of this character even though he's kind of a douche.
Yeah, sorry, I was mesmerized. And, Killua, when he's first introduced, is drawn to Gon because they're the same age, and he looks like he's just going to be, like you said, like another extremely powerful kid, but his backstory is an epic one, and that kind of gets revealed as things go on. Tompa, he's kind of a lovable idiot. Like, he's trying to ruin everyone's dreams, but he kind of messes it up a lot. And he is the snake in the nest in the Hunter's exam. He's known as the Rookie Crusher, and it's his mission in life to stop anybody passing the test when they take it for the first time. So this is the first time we're introduced to a Hunter too, and it's Sasotsi, I think his name is. My pronunciations are terrible. And this exam, we say it's a running test, but it's a running test that no ordinary person would pass. And he runs it with ease. He's walking at such a pace that everybody else is struggling to keep up. And a lot of the participants fail at this point. It's where we kind of get to see the stronger characters show their abilities. And it's really interesting because we see Leroy really struggle with this. He ends up taking off his clothes and belting it after being inspired by Gon and Killua. And Gon and Killua just take it in their stride. I mean, Killua's skateboarding for a good portion of this.
Yeah, and one of the things is that the guy who is running the Hunter Examiner, he's a very off-putting guy for some reason. Maybe it's because he doesn't have a mouth and his movements are so weird, but yeah, I think he's a very off-putting examiner, but at the same time, I never really had a problem with his character or anything like that.
No, he has a really interesting interaction with Hisoka, who we are first introduced to here, because Tompa kind of tells the guys who everybody is, and we find out that Hisoka failed the previous exam for killing an examiner. So when they finish the first part of the run, they go to an area that's known as the Swindler's Swamp, and this is where there's lots of magical creatures living, and some of them can transform, and there's kind of a fake examiner and the real examiner. One's saying they're both pretending to be the examiner, and Hisoka simply throws two deadly attacks at them, killing the fake guy, and the examiner catches it, and he explains it by saying any hunter would be able to block this, but it's kind of a tense moment where the examiner tells him, if you do anything like that again, I will put you down, basically. And you see kind of the dark side of Hisoka, who becomes a real interesting character in this, and one that caught my eye straight away because of his unique design. I don't know what your thoughts were on his introduction.
Oh, Hisoka had a really good introduction. It kind of reminds me a lot of Toguro in a way, because Hisoka just seems to be 2 or 3 steps beyond Gon and Leorio and Kurapika and Killua. So, I mean, from the very first punch he does, and wow, was that a great first punch in this series. The first time I saw that, I was like, wow, Hunter x Hunter really knows how to pack a wallop, because, yeah, there are those amazing shots in the Yu Yu Hakusho manga of these amazing slugs to the face, but that was the first taste of, wow, punches in this series actually mean something. It's not like where in Dragon Ball Z, where they're just, fighting and punch each other a million times. One gets gut punched, and then, they spit up blood, and they just go back to fighting all crazy again. No, in here, you can really tell that every single attack matters. With just Hisoka himself. Yeah, I kind of thought he came off a little bit pedo-ish, especially like the way like whenever he was choking Gon and he was just like, "Oh, that look in your eyes, I love it." And then he's just like, "No, don't do that," whenever he's just like whenever Gon's like passing out. So Hisoka at the very start, he comes off very badass and not to mess with, but also kind of pedo-ish. So yeah, that's kind of my first opinion on him. But I mean, just going back to an earlier thing, I forgot to mention, whenever Leorio and all of them were interacting, like they were saying like, "Oh, Leorio is an old man." He's just like, "No, I'm a teenager just like you guys." And that's one of the most memorable lines of this entire series to me, just because it's so hilarious and it never gets old to me.
Yeah, I definitely would never have guessed that he was supposed to be just a little bit older than the main cast. Just to mention, Gon is 12 years old, as is Kahlua. I'm not really sure on Kurapika's age, but they're all around the early teens kind of ages.
Oh yeah, but what did you think of Hisoka though?
Oh, Hisoka, like I say, his design really drew me in. I mean, he's a magician in a magician design, kind of clown-esque, so he has got a creepy look about him. And the first kind of mentions that he'd killed a hunter before, like an examiner before, is kind of a display of power straight away, because these guys are head and shoulders above your average person, and he kind of just strolls his way through the exam, like it's not really a problem to him. And as you say, that first fight he has, because a group of competitors try to take him down, try to kill him in the mist during the run through the swamplands, and he just wipes them out. And he makes a joke about it, where he's like, "I'll play examiner again," kills them with ease, and he puts down Leorio with ease. That's the punch you're talking about, and this is where Gon comes back to save him. And his interactions with Gon, like you say, he is a creepy character with that kind of perverted nature that you're talking about. And you can draw the Toguro links, like you say, because like Toguro, his aim is strength. He wants to fight strong people, but he wants to kill them, and that's why he takes an interest in Gon, because Gon straight away manages to land a blow with his fishing rod, but it's not like a major blow, it just touches him, and after that he sees the potential in him, and then he's got his sights set on letting the flower grow before he kills it. Basically, he wants Gon to get to his full strength before he kills him, so he's kind of a key figure for the rest of the series, kind of a shadow hanging over Gon, and kind of an ambition that Gon has is to get to Hisoka level.
Yes, and I completely forgot about that phrase of like, "Oh, I don't want to pick the fruit before it becomes too ripe."
Yeah.
Yeah, Hisoka in these early episodes he's pretty creepy sometimes. But I would say let's move on to the next one, which is the gourmet test, and I'm a cook, so this phase was right up my alley, and I'm also kind of a picky eater, so again, this phase was right up my alley, just because I was like, I can empathize with that one woman, just because like she doesn't like any of the hogs that are cooked for her.
Yeah, what they have to do here is kill a pig and cook it. It sounds easy, but it turns out to be pretty impossible, because she doesn't like anybody's food at all. So they're actually all of our characters actually fail at this point. They don't manage to do anything much different. They all kind of cook it in the same way, but some try different designs and things. And it kind of ends up with all the entrances really, really angry at the decision that they've all failed, which is where we're introduced to the chairman of the Hunter Association as he comes to reverse the decision. I guess he's the next major character we should give our opinions on. I don't know what you thought when you first met Naruto. Probably pronounced wrong.
I mean, I don't really have too much of an opinion on him besides just like, okay, this is a pretty acceptable and serviceable wise old master. I hear that he gets a lot more development later, and that there's just a lot of stuff that happens later involving him. But just in this exam arc, I thought he was a perfectly suitable old master. I mean, especially whenever he was doing that ball game with Gon and Killua. So, yeah, that's basically my first impressions of him. And that whole ball game, I was just like, this is like where I really started to really like love Gon as a character, just because, I mean, he's such an adorable character, and just whenever he was just like, hee hee, I won, yay, and then he just passes out. Such great stuff.
Yeah, that ball game is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it shows how strong Naruto is because he just uses one hand, and that's what Gon celebrates, that he forces him to make two hands. And here we kind of see the dark side of Killua even more, because he actually stops the game because he's worried that he might kill Naruto. We get to see our first signs of kind of special techniques here as well, because we get to see Killua do the after image, which is very, very different to the after image in Dragon Ball. Here it's done with the footsteps, and it's kind of animated where you see kind of Killua walking slowly with kind of a purple haze and lots of Killuas behind. Looks really, really beautiful, and you kind of get the opinion that there's something very, very special about Killua.
Yeah, and also the whole hint of him being kind of a assassin, basically. Like, this is the first real hint, in my opinion, where you're just like, huh, this Killua guy might not be a total angel. I mean, you kind of get those hints earlier, but it's not as blatant as it is here, and especially later on. But we'll get to that. So, yeah, then the next part is the tower, and it's a fairly interesting one. I think that the best thing about it is that they were clever enough to knock down the walls on the long end so that way they could get to the short end. So this whole exam is just filled with a bunch of clever writing, honestly.
Yeah, Trick Tower is run by a prison warden. It's a prison, and through this they're put into a team, and they've got to get through it in the quickest amount of time. It's our main characters plus Tompa. Obviously, he's going to try and fail him throughout, and we kind of get to see the character relationships form even further. Gon and Killua form that close, enduring friendship that lasts throughout the show. Leora and Kurapika get even closer, and it's kind of great to see the guys kind of trying to work together to figure things out. I mean, here they have to vote using the watches, and it's majority rules, so if anyone votes differently, you don't get to pass to the next stage, which obviously causes a lot of trouble. And the first major test in here is a competition against prisoners, where each of our entries has to fight a prisoner in some kind of game, and if they win, they get extra time, and if they fail, the prisoners lose time on their sentences. I think that's correct. And the first prisoner that comes up is against Tompa, and Tompa fails on purpose.
And it's probably his best moment too, whenever you just like see him just like, he has like an aura and it's just like flaring up, and he's just like, I give up.
yeah, he's really funny. And then it gets to like the major parts of it, where we get Kurapika's first kind of major character development, because he's up next against a prisoner who looks really tough, but turns out he's just pretending to be a member of the Phantom Troop, pretending to be this big serial killer. But because of Kurapika's history with the Phantom Troop, he completely loses his temper and pretty much destroys the guy.
Oh, that is such a satisfying moment, because it's just like, oh, Blue dude, you done messed up. And he just gets one of the best wallops in the entire show. I'm like, whoa. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm not really someone who gets hyped too much, but damn, I was pretty dang hyped during that first moment.
Yeah,
and even though, like, I think that what follows is kind of boring, just like how they're just waiting for him to wake up and all that kind of stuff, like, before that, just Kurapika just punching him down to the floor, that was amazing.
I love the joke when Gon says afterwards, we best keep Kurapika away from spiders, because Kurapika says he loses his temper whenever he sees a spider like that, because I don't know if we mentioned what the Phantom Troop did. The Phantom Troop killed all his family, so that's why he gets angry like that, because he gets his species of human, I guess that's what you call the species, get their eyes turn red, and they're very valuable, so people kill their clan to steal their eyes and sell them, and it's his mission in life to get revenge. And he's a real determined character, and He really grew on me, Kurapika. He's a very, very well-wrote character. I think all of the guys have great backstories, really. I think the only one we haven't talked about is Kalua's backstory.
Yeah, but Kurapika, I would say that this is where he really started to get me really interested in his character. And, I mean, before we move on to Killua, I think that whole thing where Leorio's trying to guess whether or not the girl prisoner is actually a girl, it's kind of a cliche, pervy moment, but it still had me laughing.
Yeah, Leorio...
He's like, oh, so worth it.
Yeah, he plays a gambling game. He basically loses everyone's time because he wants to touch the girl prisoner's bits, basically.
Yeah, just for lack of better words. But on to Killua. This is where I was like, okay, Killua definitely has an evil streak in him. And just because whenever he pulls out that prisoner's heart, he's just like sitting there holding it up and just having like the most smug, evil smile on his face. But like traditional anime fashion, the guy doesn't stop walking and actually dies until the heart beats out, until the heart stops beating outside of his body. Just, I mean, it's traditional, like, cliche anime stuff, but still kind of cool.
Oh, it's an epic moment. This is where we get the first hints of what his family's like, too, because Kurapika asks him about what technique he used to pull out his heart, and Kalua's response is, it's not a technique I just had in my hands, but that was nothing. When my dad does it, there's not even a drop of blood. You think, whoa, well, what are his family capable of? And the only test left here is Gon's test, when it's a candle test. Which candle's going to burn out first? But Gon's candle is rigged. But he manages to figure it out by blowing out the opponent's candles, because he's that quick. He just kind of flashes up in front of him and blows it out before he can do anything about it.
Yes, I love that too, because it's revealed that he has a very quick first step whenever he jumps at someone. And just the whole thing of him being able to win a rigged game again shows more of this show's really clever writing.
Yeah, it's so well written, and if you get really into it, you'll find so much joy but so much frustration being a Hunter x Hunter fan, because if you read the manga, it's on hiatus constantly. You get hyped and then it stops again. So that's why this anime kind of ends where it does. I won't spoil anything. It's because the manga's still going on, but it's not far enough ahead to give us more anime.
Yeah, but on to the next thing before we get on to the mini tournament. So they eventually get onto the island where they are trying to steal tags from one another. And I would probably say my favorite aspect of this thing is where Gon is trying to catch a bird, and he learns the secret to doing it, and then that's how he eventually gets Hisoka's tag. So to me, this is a really good Gon moment, even though Hisoka does get his tag back. It's still such a great thing, and kind of makes me think okay, Hisoka has a really good reason to being interested in Gon.
Hisoka lets him keep the tag and says, I'll take it back off you when you can punch me in the face like that. Is that, I might be wrong there, I think something like that happens there?
Something like that. It might have happened earlier, but I do remember Gon getting the tag and then him getting paralyzed or something.
Yeah, Gon gets attacked by the guy who is at... The game is, everybody has a tag. You've got to capture a certain number. So each tag has a number on it. You're given a number, you have to catch that number and keep your own tag. Your tag's worth 3 points. The number you've got to catch is worth 3 points, and any other number is worth 1 point. So Gon gets Hisoka, which is pretty much the hardest number to catch. He trains, as you said, which is great character development, but he gets the tag, lets his guard down, and is attacked. Then Hisoka kills the man who attacked him, and lets Gon keep that tag and says, I'll take it back off you when you can hit me in the face. That's right, because he gets it back in the Heaven's Arena arc, if I remember rightly. Hope I'm not wrong.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen this arc.
Yeah, same here, so hopefully I'm not just talking rubbish. So yeah, the next thing I really enjoyed about this is Leroy trying to get his tag in the tunnel, in the cave where the snake charmer has died, so the snake's all around him because he can't release his trap.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty tense scene. I remember that the very first time watching it. I was like, huh, this is the first sign of, like, really good tension in the series of just like, oh crap, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah, and we get to see a lot about the characters again. Gon here just dives into the snakes and takes the bites that could kill you, in the hope that the guy would have the antidote on him, which obviously he does, else we'd have no Gon for the rest of the story.
Yep, that's exactly true. But yeah, I mean, another thing is that Tonpa getting out is very satisfying too.
Yeah, this is where Tonpa meets his end. All of our main characters succeed here. Killua does it with absolute ease, taking on 3 people at once and throwing away... Killua's a monster compared to most people at this point, I have to say that. So he walks through it, skateboards through it in his cool kind of way. Again, Leroy and Kurapika kind of have the most trouble, but that's only because we compare them to Gon and Killua, because that's who they're with most of the time. Compared to, like, the average person entering this test, they're still miles ahead. It's just Gon, Killua, Hisoka, and Illumai are kind of head and shoulders above anybody else.
Yeah, it really does seem that way. I mean, especially like whenever you get to the mini tournament, which we're going to talk about now, it seems like that everyone else kind of breezes through it besides Gon, because we don't even see like Leorio or Kurapika go through the thing. It's just revealed at the end that they won the Hunter's exam. But getting kind of ahead of myself, so the mini tournament, like, that is basically the Genkai tournament to a T. I mean, except for the whole fact of, like, Genkai was just like, you can kill each other or whatever, it doesn't matter to me, just the one who wins is all good. So, I mean, the mini tournament's pretty interesting, even though it's very short.
I really enjoyed it. Just before this tournament is where we got to see the ball game that we talked about earlier with Netaro, where Gon and Killua could have got a pass, but they couldn't get the ball off him because he's that damn good. So yeah, this tournament is really interestingly set up. They all get interviewed by Netaro and get asked who they would least like to face in a fight and who they would most like to face. No, who they've got their eye on, so who they want to do well and who they would least like to face in a fight. So they have this interview and he kind of picks up the matchups from that, and we get some real good fights here. And it's the first time we get to see Nen used in the Killua fight, because Killua comes up against his brother, and at the time we don't know why he can't fight him, but later on it's revealed to us why. So that's kind of where we see Killua bow out and actually fail it, even though skill wise he's well and truly able to pass it at this point.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy to me that the guy with the needles was revealed to be Killua's brother, because whenever he takes out the needles, he looks like a completely different character, and then he has that like blank stare that's just really off-putting. And so it's just like, wow, like, this is Killua's brother. So if Killua is kind of the more tame of the family, then how crazy is his family actually?
Oh, his family is awesome. The Zodiac assassin family. Killua's trying to kind of get away from that. He doesn't want to be an assassin, but he's been an assassin all his life up to that point and killed an insane amount of people. But his family are trying to make him be an assassin. They don't want him to be a hunter. So this is kind of why they're trying to make him fail. It's just a fascinating family, and Killua's backstory is kind of a horrible one. It's kind of a life of torture and death and misery, and probably the harshest life story of any of our characters, maybe other than Leroy, who wants to become a doctor because a disease hit his town and his friend died and he couldn't afford to save him. That's why he wants money to become a doctor and stop any kids dying in a similar way. But yeah, Killua's family are just all fascinating. They're really strong too. I mean, his dad is one of the strongest characters in the anime.
Yeah, then I haven't actually gotten to the part where he's really, really displayed, I guess. I mean, if it was displayed at all during the next, like, 5 or 6 episodes we're going to cover after this, I guess I didn't really see it too much, or maybe it's just been so long since I've seen it that I don't remember it, but...
I might be fast-forwarding, I can't help it, I get too excited.
Yeah, but I mean, just the mini-tournament, I would say the most memorable fight of that whole thing was Gon versus the ninja, and probably my favorite moment is whenever they poked fun at the whole Yusuke, like, being like, Sensui, you can't die on me, I want to win on my own terms, because Gon basically does the exact same thing to that ninja. But of course, the circumstances are a little bit different, but just seeing the ninja just uppercut him and just be like, you moron! I was just, that they are poking fun at their own tropes in shonen, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that battle is intense. I mean, Gon just is outmatched here, and if it was a battle to the death, he would have died. I mean, the rule is you can't kill them or you get disqualified. The only way you win is if your opponent gives up, and Gon just won't give up at all. So that's why the ninja gives up, out of frustration, basically, that he doesn't want to kill Gon. That's the only way it's going to end, is if he gives up. So yeah, Gon's character really comes out here. We also get an interesting battle with Hisoka and Kurapika, because that's who he's drawn against, and it ends with a whisper, because Hisoka is absolutely stronger than Kurapika, but it ends with a whisper, and he tells him he's got information on the Phantom Troop, so that's why they end that fight.
Okay, yeah, that's probably why I don't really remember any fights besides Gon versus that ninja, but... I mean, I would probably say the biggest twist of this arc is whenever Gon wakes up later, and he, of course, becomes a hunter. And so he finds out that one person was disqualified or failed the exam. And the very first thing I thought was like, oh, it's Leorio, because he's obviously the weakest link. And to my surprise, and to a lot of people's surprise, it was Killua. And just the way that he was manipulated into killing that guy it's pretty heartbreaking in a way.
Oh, it really is. I mean, Killua is from a life of darkness, and kind of his friendship with Gon is kind of the first little bit of light that comes into his life, and kind of shows him that he can have a friend, that he can kind of go a different path to his family. But his interaction with his brother completely kind of crushes those dreams. He's kind of told, look, if you stay friends with someone, you'll end up killing him, because he's got potential, and you'll want to kill him because you'll want to fight against that potential, which kind of messes with Killua's head. And Killua just loses it and just completely destroys some random guy, basically.
Yeah, like, not even in a match that he's in, so that's what's crazier about it. And this is probably the point where I really started to like Killua. And so whenever he was brought back over to his family's house to be tortured, which we're going to be talking about in the next podcast when we do this, that is where I was just like, you know, like, I might not be too much of a fan of typical we gotta save our friends arc, but in this case, I thought it worked out really well, but we'll get into that in the next video. But do you have anything else to add before we wrap this up for today?
I don't think so. I mean, the next video is going to be the big one, because that's where we'll be introducing Nen, which is the ability used in Hunter x Hunter, and it's such an amazing ability, such a well-written idea, and we kind of build onto the major themes in the show. I mean, what we're covering next, we'll be covering the mini rescue Killua arc, don't know the real name for it, and the Heaven's Arena arc, I presume.
Yeah, we might even go over to the York Shin, just depends on how it goes, but, I mean, I really like Killua. Like, I know that the whole thing of like, oh, I just want a friend might sound bad on the surface, but once you understand Killua, you really understand, like, why he would want this kind of connection with someone, and why, like, him and Gon just click so much, and it's just an amazing show if you guys haven't seen it, and you all need to watch it. But anyways, guys, that is going to be it for the podcast for today. Make sure to look for a new one next week. I don't know what I'll be covering, but I'll be letting you guys know on Twitter. You can follow us both. I'll be leaving the links to our Twitter and our YouTube channels in the description below. But with that, guys, I hope you all have a great day, and thank you so much for listening to us talk about Hunter x Hunter. And I will see you all in the next video.
Yeah, bye guys, you will smile again.